Hi and welcome to the channel. Now today's video is a video that I'll keep meaning to do and people have asked me to do in the past, not many people, but a few people have asked me, so don't get carried away here Mick. A few people have asked me maybe you should make up a system, a bit like Techman did about a year or so, maybe 2 years ago. Time really flies. I've been doing this channel 3 years, it's gone just like that. But yeah, Techman put a little system together, a Technics Cassiva, I think it was a cassette, radio and amplifier all in one. Then he put a pair of speakers to it, then he also put a turntable to it and done a little system there. How good that system was, I don't know. Techman seems to like it, so that's the main thing. It's probably a reasonable system, but a little bit dubious maybe on the actual choice being a Cassiva. Maybe that cheap Technics is probably better about. I would have said maybe it get something a bit better. I don't know, I'm guessing a bit because I haven't got it, but there you go. Anyway, so I thought maybe I'll put my little take on it, my little video here of a couple of systems you may be able to put together fairly cheap and still get hopefully a reasonable sound. You know, don't expect these systems long. I'll do one for less than £100 or about £100, maybe just a tad over, that kind of thing, and one in about the £200 region that I suggest. Now when I say I suggest, these are going to be based on things that I've had, so it's all the stuff I've had on the channel. It's nothing, I'm not going to start guessing things, picking out things out of thin air. And I ain't had a vast amount of stuff over 3 years. It sounds a long time, 3 years, but obviously things take time and been doing lots of bits and pieces and everything else. Got my own life to lead, all that kind of stuff. I've not been non-stop. So I've only had so many items come through, and if you want to look through my videos, you'll probably have an idea if you type in amplifier or something in the search, or receiver or turntable, whatever, you'll get an idea of how many I've actually reviewed. So it's not a massive amount, let's put it that way. So I can only go by bits that I've had in the house and I've listened to. I'm not going to pluck anything up there, and it's going to be stuff that you can go and buy off of eBay, places like that, probably today or tomorrow or in a few weeks time they come up, and that's the kind of price you're going to pay. I'm not going to be kind of like plucking up something that I've paid a tenner for, that you're going to have to go and pay £200 for and say this is the thing to get. It's going to be able to build a system for less than £200 or less than £100, because you're not going to. You're going to have to go. You may get lucky. I mean, I've read a few articles here, there, and I've known a couple of people as well. Some person, for instance, a pair of Ditton 11s, not that they're really expensive, but they're over £100 to buy. Managed to get that for a tenner in a charity shop. Another bloke I read online, a few forums and that, where they've managed to get a pair of LS3As or whatever for a tenner as well. And another chap who does a channel on YouTube that's well believable, that he managed to get a garage find in America of a Sansui AU 22000 for less than $30. So that's really fluke stuff. So we're not going to start. I'm not starting to suggest that and say there you go and have a little look around. You'll probably get one eventually if you're really lucky. It's going to be based on stuff that you can actually go and get. So first of all, I'm going to start off with the speakers, and these speakers are probably going to go with both systems here. So that's why I'm starting off with the speakers. And the speakers I suggest, like I said, I can only go by what I've reviewed. I'm going to kind of guess one a little bit here, to be honest with you, but what I've reviewed, and I recommend for a little pair of speakers you're going to pay £30 or £40 for. My top choice will be the Wolfdale Diamond Freeze for that kind of money. Like I say, you can go and get lucky, you can go and buy another pair of speakers, completely fluke, it's worth a couple of £100 for 30 quid or something like that, but something you can actually go and buy. They're on eBay now, kind of thing, or going to be there soonish. Obviously, people do buy it now, £70 or £80. But this is just typical what you should be able to get it for if you do a bid up or just wait a little bit longer. So then Diamond Freeze, you should get for about £40, I would have said, something like that. Now, if you can't manage to get them, or you see they're too expensive, you've got to go and get something now. I'm going to give a few little other speakers in the mix. Like the Diamond 2s are not too bad. They're not quite as good as the Diamond Freeze, but another pair of speaker that goes pretty cheap, £30 or £40 for a pair of Diamond 2s. Also, Celestial Ditton speakers, the 3s I had, they're quite a nice speaker as well, and they go for £30 or £40. They're not that expensive. There's another pair of speakers you can get for £30 or £40. And also, they do them in a Celestial 3 Mark IIs. Now, I've not had these, but I've had a few people now, 3 or 4 people now actually, saying that they've had both pairs, well, a couple of them have anyway, and they did definitely prefer out the two. Well, I say definitely, they thought it was a better sounding speaker was the Mark II version of them. So, but then I like the Mark I sounds quite nice to me, and well worth getting, I think, if you only want to pay £30 or £40. And so, if these Mark IIs, maybe worth considering, shall I say? Like I say, I can't give a definite answer on that because I haven't heard them, so a little bit of guesswork there. But maybe just bear them in mind. So they're the speakers you're going to be playing around with, and we're going to play around with them pair of speakers, both them pairs of speakers again, in the system that I'm going to build for £200. But that's for the speaker wise there. For the £100 system is either work around them kind of 3 pairs of speakers I've given you there. Okay, we're going to go over to the amplifiers now. Right, with the amplifiers, pretty much the same thing, something you can actually get rather than be lucky with. So, you know, I would suggest that this Rotel RA810 I reviewed, even though it wasn't as detailed as the Sansui 101 that I do like, you know, for that kind of budget, it's quite a detailed, quite a nice sounding unit. So that would be one of the 810. They do an 820A as well, which is supposed to be, I've heard it's supposed to be for a few people again, it's supposed to be sound a bit better than the 810, and you may be lucky to get it, you know, you may be a little bit lucky to get it for say £40, say £50, something like that. But you can definitely get this 810 goes for a £40 or £50. So there you go. Them two items when you go would bring it up to about £80, £90, something like that. Another amplifier here, it's quite, you know, it's a bit cheaper this one. You can probably pick, you may be lucky to pick this up for 20 quid, but they seem to go for £30, £35, something like that. It's the JVC JA S10. Now, that's another nice sounding amplifier, one I did like. Now, with both these amplifiers, what I usually do with the amplifiers, I usually have the tone controls dead centre, so there's no gain, no, not turn them up or down. But you may just want to tinker around with these amplifiers just a little bit on the tone. You won't have to go far, you may just have to knock them up one notch, the treble or something like the bass, just to your liking. You won't have to do too much. So they're pretty, you know, pretty decent sounding. You're going to get a nice sound out of them amplifiers. Going to beat anything you go and buy in a shop for a couple of £100, maybe these plastic things you pick up the speakers, they weigh an ounce, all that kind of stuff. So these these are the guts of the system really. This is for under £100. You may be lucky, like I say, to get it a little bit less than that. So they're two that I would recommend amplifier wise. Now if you did want to stick a receiver in instead, it's a bit hard with the receiver. You may get lucky, you know, I'll just where should I start? Yeah, you may get lucky. You may be able to pick up a 331 or something like that, Sansui 331 or 441 cheap. You may be a bit lucky, but like I say, we've got to stick to something that kind of sells at the price I know it sells for. And this Sansui 200 I've got a nice little receiver called the Sansui 200. These come up, they don't come up that often though, so you may be hanging around for a receiver. Now the only thing you would want a receiver for if you wanted to listen to the radio. If you're not really interested in the radio, then stick to the amplifiers. But if you wanted to bring a radio into the mix, so you've got an extra thing to listen to there. I do like listening to the radio now and again. That Sansui 200 receiver don't come up that often, but it goes for about £40, £50 tops, but £40 or £50 that goes for. So that's quite a nice little receiver. You can get a little bit lucky with the NAD 7020, which incorporates the NAD 3020 amplifier. You can get a bit lucky. I've seen them go for £50, generally £70 or £80, so kind of bear it in mind maybe. But there you go. So receiver wise, I'm a bit cramped there receiver wise. If you wanted to go there, only one to choose from there that I could definitely recommend there. That's going to be £40, somewhere around that, is that Sansui 200. So that's your amplifiers and receivers. Not many to choose from, I must admit, but you may want to take a chance. You know what I mean? I think, you know, if you stick with them speakers that I recommend, either pair, you may just want to take a little bit of a chance with the amplifier, because you kind of, how could we say, if you're building a bridge or something across a stretch of water, you don't want all dodgy foundations. You don't want to start buying too many dodgy bits, but as long as you've got some solid foundations in there somewhere, an odd dodgy brick may not stand out so much, if that's the way of putting it. So that's the amplifier. Not a lot to choose from, but I'm never going to give you a vast amount anyway. This is my recommendations kind of thing. So that's that. Now onto the CD players. Okay, CD players. Now I'm not going to give you a lot to choose, very little to choose from here. You may be a bit off your own back here for this price range, this £100 price range. We're trying to get all this in there because I've only left you £10 or £20, which is hardly anything to go and get a CD player. So what I would say is maybe take a little bit of a gamble here, and nothing's going to sound terrible. I would have said you get a CD player, it should sound quite reasonable to go with these two items. And if it's that bad, it's always something you could upgrade later on. But if you really wanted to stick to less than the £100 bracket, then you know, you may think I've spent 80 quid. I don't mind spending 40 quid or 50 quid to get a CD player. So I'll bring that into the next part of the equation, the 200 bit. But if you wanted to keep it bare minimum, you've only got £10 or £20 now left. Take a bit of a chance maybe. Look at local pickups or something like that, or you know, any cheap ones going on eBay, something like that. But also what I would say is that something you're definitely going to get, you're going to get a reasonable sound, because I've had a few on the channel. I'll put a link up to the video actually where I reviewed some DVD players and use them as a CD player, as long as it's got the display at the front so you can see where you are. I don't really want to buy a DVD player that's got no display at the front, so you actually want to just put the CD on and press play and forget about it. it's nice to know where you are, especially if you want to skip tracks and all that, you know what track you're on and all that. So it's good to have a little display. Quite easy pick up a DVD player for £10 or £20. And I don't think it's really going to matter that much which one you're going to get. Like I say, no CD player is going to sound absolutely terrible. And don't forget, we're right at the bottom of the range here. You know, it's still a nice kind of sounding system, but we're not going to be talking about all this fine detail and all that kind of stuff at this price range. We're not going to be talking about this fine detail and all that as we go up into the hundreds kind of thing, really, to that extent. So maybe take a little bit of a chance. I know it's a bit of a get out here. I haven't really recommended anything. You can get lucky, like, you know, you can pick up a CD player. It should go for £40 or £50 for maybe £10 or £20 if you get lucky, especially in a charity shop. This is a place to look. They kind of class DVD players and CD players, a lot of charity shops, it's the same kind of breath, where they look up certain things. But when it comes to a CD and DVD player, not many of the people behind the counter actually look them up. They kind of just think, oh, it's a CD player, tenner. It's a DVD player, tenner. That kind of thing. It kind of rolls around 10, maybe £20, and that will be their limit. I've seen it quite a number of times in charity shops, so maybe that's a place to look as well. But online, also on eBay and places like that, you will pick up a DVD player that will play CDs. Can get lucky. Some play super VCDs. Some VCDs. I'm talking about videos now. SA CDs, super audio CDs that do play that as well. You can get a bit lucky. So yeah, so that's my kind of get out here. The cheapest part of the system, a bit of a get out really, for me anyway. I kind of sidestepped it a bit, but I think once you've got them speakers, you've got the amplifier sorted out, that CD player's not going to matter too much. You know what I mean? I don't think anyone made a really unbelievably, you know, it's going to sound absolutely terrible CD player. So that's it. Now, if we want to go up to turntables, you're going to be really lucky here again, really, because I'm not going to suggest any, because the one I bought come with a cartridge and everything, and I didn't need to change the stylus at the time when I bought it. I think I did buy a belt for it, actually, to tell a lie, which was only about £7. Was I bought Technics, was it the SA21 or J21? Managed to get that local pickup for £21, and like I say, when I got it, it was fine. I think it just had a little bit too much wow and flutter at some stage, so I did change the belt. But a bit lucky there, a bit different of a kettle, kettle of fish turntables, because there's quite a bit there that even though you've got the turntable cheap, you may have to replace the stylus, you may have to replace the belt. There's a few things there, and all before, you know, you bought something for £30 or £40 maybe, you suddenly all of a sudden you spent £80, £100, you spent double what you bought the unit for. So this system here, this £100 system, we're really not talking about record players, we're going to talk about CDs, maybe if you bought a tuner, like I say, a receiver, you've got a radio there as well, but mainly CDs, just amplifier and speakers. So that's my £100 system. So if I was to recommend there, like I say, buy one of them two amplifiers, that receiver, maybe take a little bit of a chance yourself, have a little bit of a punt, you can always reset it on again, but stick to them 2 pairs of speakers or them 3 pairs of speakers I mentioned. I think you're not going to go far wrong with that little system, that stuff you can actually go and buy now, kind of thing, at them prices. Okay, so that's the £100 system wrapped up. Okay, so now to the £200 system. Could be a bit quicker now maybe. I'm going to skip the speakers straight away because you know which speakers to get. I've mentioned them earlier. So that's the speakers sorted. You're on solid ground there with the speakers. Now we're going to go over to the amplifier. Got a bit more choice now. We're £40 in with the speakers, thereabouts. So we've got £160 left now to get ourselves a CD player and an amplifier or receiver, something like that. So amplifier wise, so I want to try and keep something that's solid you can get, but you can get a little bit lucky, just, you know, they kind of deviate a little bit. The Cambridge A60 amplifier I had that was donated by Mike, and I do say thanks to Mike again for that, for the channel. That goes for about 120, may keep up to 160, but I've seen them go for £100 here and there, so that's quite a nice solid British amplifier, nice sounding amplifier. So that's one I would recommend. You can get lucky with a NAD 3020. I found it just a little bit muddy, that sound, but it's got quite a musical sound, quite a nice sound to it. And, you know, it's one of them sounds that quite a lot of people like, so I wouldn't dismiss it. But that, you know, realistically is probably in the 180s now, something like that. So it's probably just a bit too much above our budget. But worth mentioning is the 7020, the receiver, which pretty much sounds identical. Just a very slight difference in sound, I thought. Not that much, no. And that can go for £70. You can pick up ones, I've seen them there for £70, so we're well in there, even if you paid £100. But I think, you know, you start more need a £70. So that's another receiver there that incorporates that 3020 amplifier. That's not the IVE and all that, it's just the basic model. It looks pretty, you'll see it's got the same kind of controls as the 3020 Series 20 amplifier. As for let's just make sure. Yeah, receivers. Stick what we're sticking on receivers. The first is the 441, the Sansui 441, a nice sounding receiver. The Sansui 331, which is down there somewhere, another nice sounding receiver. I've got a Pioneer SX636, actually it's KX636, but again, you may be lucky to pick it up for £100. That's quite a nice sounding receiver. These are a bit more airy sound. This Sansui sound is a bit more airy, a bit more three-dimensional, depending where you want to kind of sit with your sound. I do like that sound. That's kind of my kind of sound. You may not be too much interested. When I say three-dimensional, don't mean everything's popping out in 3D, but on certain tracks, if it's, you know, kind of got that kind of airiness and that's how it's kind of mixed, you will get that. It just kind of like protrude that, kind of like extends that, so you definitely hear it and you get that kind of feel to it. It's quite a nice sound, got, you know, quite a nice airy sound and three-dimensional, and the eyes are quite nice, all that kind of stuff. I do like that kind of sound, but you know, it may not be for you. So yeah, so the Pioneer SX636 is quite a nice sounding receiver. It's quite nice, but you may get lucky to pick that up for £100. I think the last one went for about 120, something like that. So there you've got a radio in the mix as well as these with the radios here. And going back, we'll go back a bit as it happens. We'll save you a bit of money here, because even though it's a part of my £100 range, highly recommended again is the Sansui 200 receiver. Great little receiver that is. So that's definitely recommended that. So it's going to save you a chunk there if you did bring that into the mix. So yeah, they're the kind of recommendations I would go. Out of all of them, maybe the one, oh, I don't know if I mentioned the 101 actually, the Sansui 101, that's quite a nice amplifier. I've got the 222 as well. You could get lucky with the 222 and get it a little bit cheaper, but generally speaking that goes above our budget. So yeah, the Sansui 101 would be the recommendation. So you know, at the moment, you know, if I was actually putting this together, I wasn't too worried about a radio. I just wanted a amp and a pair of speakers. I go for the Diamond Freeze here, and that Sansui 101, they do match up quite nicely. So that's that. So that's your amplifiers and receivers. Like I say, I can only go by what I've had on the channel. So go back and have a look at other items I've had in the past and anything I've not kept. I'm not saying it's complete rubbish because I've given a review on it. It's maybe worth considering going and have a look at these. But these are my top of moving up the top of the tree kind of thing, and ones I've kept hold of. Okay, just quickly on the turntable, like I say, I'm not really going to bring it in, but you can get lucky. I managed to pick up a Victorola or something like that. It retailed for £200, and here in the UK, Virgin had a little clearance sale, literally clearance, where it went for £59 from 200, and actually if you put in a code, which was available on the internet, you saved another 20%, so I actually got it for £50 and went and picked it up from one of their shops, not Virgin, sorry, not about, like HMV, should I say, HMV. So you can get lucky with that, but again, like I say, maybe leave you to look around the turntables, and that's something local pickup. This is mainly going to be incorporating a CD in this bit, but do remember that you may have to go and buy a cartridge and maybe a belt, or depending if it may be direct drive, you may be lucky, but bear that in mind. Adds to the cost. You think you're picking up something fairly, and most people say it's hardly been used, or and you get home and the stylus is completely worn out, that kind of thing. And the stylus is, most of them are not like cheap these days, can add a fair bit to your kind of outlay. Just bear that in mind. And with all this equipment, it's all old stuff, so just bear that in mind as well. That hopefully you're going to get it in good condition. It's still going to be working, because this is old stuff, you know what I mean, but it's good, it sounds, it's vintage sound. It is a vintage sound channel really. I'm going to bring some other stuff into it later on, more up to date stuff I think as well, where people don't always want to take a chance that it's going to blow up or something go wrong with it, but this is the vintage sound we're going for. This is what the channel's really all about, but you've got to take, you know, it's a little bit iffy sometimes, they can go wrong like anything else, and obviously being really old, the chances are higher, so bear that in mind. But if you're starting off with a really budget system, £100, and that's all the money you got, as it happens, that Rotel and that JVC, there's not a lot of many noisy transistors. I don't think there's any in either of them actually. I can't remember now offhand, but on some of this other stuff, you have got noisy transistors. That Pioneer 636 has got a few prone transistors. I think the actual Sansui 101 has got maybe a noisy transistor there. So but you know, it's just one of them things, like I say, I don't want to put you off. You go with a vintage sound, hopefully you're not going to spend too much money. So if one item broke down, even if you have to resell it as broken, someone will buy it off you and you're going to get a vast amount of your money back. I am digressing, I'm just want to warn you that these obviously can go wrong. And I'll stick a video actually up on the top there now, link to it. I've had so many items over about a year or something, and about a third of them I think have actually had faults, etc., come along. and there's been a couple that I ain't actually mended completely yet, and I may not get to the bottom of it, but anyway, that's another story. In fact, I've got rid of them now, so it is a completely different story. Okay, so I've digressed. Now, onto the CD player. Now, I've had a few CD players, not a lot, so I can't really vouch for too many. Like I say, maybe still think about that DVD, but we're up in the stakes here. We're getting to the £200 bracket. And if you've gone with my recommendations here at the moment, the Wolfdale speakers, £40, the Sansui 101, £100, £120, somewhere around there. So you're into about maybe £140, £150 thereabouts. A CD player I would recommend that sounds really nice for the price is the Pioneer, isn't the Pioneer, it's the Philips 160, the CD 160. I was managed to get that really cheap myself, but on eBay it goes for about £40, £50 thereabouts, somewhere around there, so it's just going to tie into our £200 bracket. It's got the TDA 1541 chip and it sounds really nice. It's quite a nice sounding, quite a revealing sounding, and I like a nice smooth velvety kind of sounding CD player. Really does, you know, sound nice, and people say that it sounds a bit more like vinyl than it does CD kind of thing. So yeah, that's quite a nice little player. So that's one I definitely would recommend. Like I say, you can scout about yourself. You may just want to cut the budget down a little bit and maybe opt for something you picked up for a 10 or something like that. I don't think you're going to go far, too far wrong, but you will get some extra detail, some smoothness out of that Philips CD 160 that's got that chip. Or maybe you want to have a look around some other CD players that's got that chip in as well, because compared to a few other, not that I've had many, but a few other CD players, it just takes that, it just makes things sound smooth. It just takes that kind of like metallic, kind of a little bit of a metallic sound out of it, you know what I mean? It just takes that sheen off of it and makes it sound more smooth and more flowing kind of thing. Yeah, so that's my recommendation. So for this part, I'm going to recommend them diamond free speakers, that Sansui 101 amplifier and that Philips CD 160, that I think you can combine all three of them and get them through bang on that £200 that we're going for. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this little bit. Like I say, it's only my personal opinion. It's a sound that I like, that three kind of dimensional, that kind of like sparkling, that kind of hairy kind of sound. You maybe like a more flatter 2D sound, more thumping bass, all that kind of stuff. But that's kind of my system there that I would recommend, and anything else there I mentioned as well does come recommended. So good luck with your venture doing that. And the next video, I think, what I'm going to do is actually do a video of what I'm listening to now. Stuff that, funny enough, if we just quickly go just before I finish, 25, 40... probably a system that's cost me 75, no, tell a lie, 25, 35, probably cost me £85. So I'm not going to spoil it yet. I'll come up with that system. It's a system I've been listening to quite a bit lately, and it sounds really nice. Okay, until that video, I'll say thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon.